Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Parts Talk. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, this is just another case of I told you so, because as it seems like every month brings a new twist in Ford's approach to electric vehicles. And this shows their executives have no idea what they're doing as they keep flip-flopping. As a matter of fact, not flip-flopping, is just the decisions they make as it regards to electric vehicle adoption is biting them in the rear. Now, back in January, we heard that Ford dealers were hesitant about EVs due to the high cost. And this shows that they're not listening to the voice of the people, the very people who are allotted or allowed or licensed to push your product and telling you exactly what is taking place out there in the market. You refuse to listen to them. Then Ford reduced production of the F-150 Lightning and diverted resources to traditional petrol models like the Bronco and the Ranger. Just a few months ago, Ford announced adjustments to its EV strategy after facing significant losses in its electric division. Again, it shows EV adoption is not so much right here, right now. They've filed patents for internal combustion engine lately, the technology signaling a continued focus on traditional fuels. Now, in another setback to both the Biden and Trudeau administration's push for EVs, Ford has announced a delay in its all-electric SUV production, opting to prioritize hybrid development instead. Now, it's a move that reflects the pushback from consumers in the automotive sector as the industry grapples with slower than expected EV purchasing, not demand, purchasing, not adoption and high production costs, and not the adoption and high production cost it takes to manufacture one EV. Now, in this report from NBC, Ford to delay all-electric SUV to focus on offering hybrid vehicles across its lineup by 2030. The shift in EV plans is the latest for Ford and the entire automotive industry as adoption has been slower than expected and production costs remain high. Not so much. But to let you know exactly what is taking place here in the cold white north, take a look at this feature.
Ford is taking its foot off the gas, delaying plans to produce electric vehicles out of its Oakville, Ontario plant by 2 years. Ford says the extra time will allow for EV demand to pick up. The union representing workers is pushing back.
Promises have been made, and we expect Ford Motor Company to live up to that.
One of those promises, secure jobs, about 3,000 of them. Ford now says there will be layoffs.
It's just deeply disappointing.
Sharing in that disappointment, the province and the federal government. They each invested $295 million in the Oakville plant. Both say they plan to press Ford.
Obviously, this is not the news we expected. We wanted that time frame to be as short as possible, and that's what we're going to push the company for.
Despite the investment and the anger, some experts are defending the new timeline, saying growth in EV sales is slowing, in part because of the cost and concern over battery range.
Automakers don't control the consumer. We have to build out the supports to help more consumers make that switch and make the jump into electric.
Others note that Ford is not alone. General Motors is also slowing work to retool factories for EV production, and Tesla has seen a large dip in sales. Both signs that not everyone's sold on the switch to electric yet.
We all do know where this is headed. It's the only debate we're having is how steep the curve is.
Still, Ford is aiming to roll out its 7-seat EV at this Ontario plant by 2027. And with Canada aiming to end the sale of new gas-powered cars in 2035, a shift is imminent, even if the pace is now slowing. Philip Lishanok, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, as they say, a promise is a comfort to a fool, and Ford failed to do their homework. All they had to do was to look at what is working in the market in terms of best practices. When I was working with Toyota, there is a thing that they call Genchi Genbutsu, and it's the same concept that Toyota used over 100 years ago when the original founder of Toyota, I think it was Sachiro, or I don't remember his name exactly. I'll do the homework on that. My bad. But he traveled here to North America and actually saw Ford vehicles running around. Took that concept back to Japan And then today we have Toyota, which is the #1 manufacturer in the world, and they're crushing it with sales because all they did was pushed out their hybrid model, saw that the hybrid was working, and the Toyota Prius has been on our roads for the last 20 plus years. And what they did was they doubled down on hybrid sales, making most of their lineups hybrid and delaying the push for electric vehicles. Not saying that they don't have electric vehicles running around, but they understand the challenges it takes to manufacture an electric vehicle. And because they have all the research and the knowledge, they have electric vehicles, as I mentioned, running around there in Japan. But when they looked at the data, the research, and the figures, it said to them it takes 90 hybrids to manufacture one battery electric vehicles in their concept, the 1690, and Ford didn't take that into consideration. So billions of taxpayers' dollars have been gone down the drain because what we went ahead was to sign off on Ford building factories here that they're going to be putting on delay until 2027 because it's just not feasible. What Ford is doing is based on a business decision. Now, last year the company announced a delay or cancellation of $122 billion in planned EV spending due to the factors I mentioned. And despite the delay, Ford's top executives maintain that their commitment to scaling a profitable EV business. You won't see electric vehicle profitability until after another 20, 30 years. Skepticism remains in the market for EVs as it faces uncertainty. In an article here from Automotive News, Tavares, the CEO of Stellantis, says EVs are not a one-size-fits-all mobility fix. He says EV battery weight needs to be cut in half over the next decade with new chemistries that don't require such a huge amount of raw material. Further down in the article, and I'm reading here, not everyone is convinced that electric vehicles are the global mobility fix of the future. Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares among those who have doubts that zero emissions models will work for everyone in every part of the world. We should move away from a diplomatic thinking where one size fits all, Tavares said Wednesday at the automakers' Freedom of Mobility Forum. I don't think this is going to work. What I would like to add is that the current EVs can be a solution for some of our societies. Robert Schaefer, professor of energy economics at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, said around 800 million people don't have access to electricity, while many more don't have a stable power grid to rely on. And this is actually true because in some countries, some developing countries, you have power outages on a regular basis. I like what the article goes on to mention what Schaefer says, who studies how society can reach net zero emissions, said viewing EVs as a widespread option is a global north perspective, which refers to regions such as Europe and North America. Overall, biofuels will work better than EVs. You know, it's actually funny to think that some of the politicians here in the North allegedly are a part of the World Economic Forum, and on their very same website of the WEF, it states here top 10 skills of 2023 and moving forward that are needed are analytical thinking, creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, and agility. Number 4, motivation and self-awareness. Obviously, this is not portrayed at the top of the executive at both Ford and General Motors, who have lost billions of dollars rushing into electric vehicle mobility. And certainly not our politicians at the top either, because they are the ones who force this mandate on a lot of people. Now, I've been discussing this in the past about the electric vehicle mandate being pushed on us. What we have to look at is how the market responds to a lot of these things, because vehicle purchases mostly is based on disposable income, and all the data, research, and analysis are there to prove that point. And it is why dealerships on a monthly basis look at the things called the key performance indicators to tell you exactly where the markets are. So Ford's shift towards hybrid vehicles reflects the complex landscape of the automotive industry. So while EV ambitions remain the forward, and it is fraught with challenges and uncertainties, so we have to look at a pragmatic way in order for people to get on the mobility train. Not right now. In 50 years, maybe, but the mandate, it is not something that you force. What is going to happen is people who understand the market within the last 5 years up to the mandate deadline, people are going to start hoarding ICE vehicles. And then you will have a rise in the prices of those particular vehicles. It will be astronomical. As the electric vehicle mandate draws near, the price of internal combustion engine, those cars, the prices are going to rise through the roof because people don't have a choice. And what we're seeing with Ford right now is that when push comes to shove, the first thing they're going to do from a business standpoint is lay off people. They have already laid off over thousands of people between them, GM, and Stellantis. Many more to come. The factory will be shut down in about April or so and won't be back up until around 2027. More people will be out of a job. And to those who are working in the automotive sector, and I've told you before, it is a very unforgiving industry. The leaders at the top, at least the ones now, they have no idea what they're doing. Anytime politicians get involved into the automotive sector, things go awry. When regulations are pushed without looking at the market forces and economies of scale and the total data and research and the key performance indicators to tell us exactly what works and what doesn't, plus best practices, you will have total mayhem in the market. As usual, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to grab a copy of my ebook, The Parts Manager Guide. Please smash that like button on your way out. It will only take you 1.5 seconds to do so. Until next time.